Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into a deeply unsettling, grimdark Gothic fable of humanity's evolution. Or, well, maybe it's more accurate to call it our terrifying dead end. Just imagine looking up and the sky has been completely scrubbed of its chaotic natural blue. In its place is just this fixed, mathematical violet overhead. It's a sky that perfectly reflects a wasteland of absolute efficiency. What we're unpacking today is a transhumanist allegory that is heavily steeped in Nietzschean philosophy. It's a story of how our desperate quest to transcend our biological limits didn't actually lead to a spiritual ascent. Instead, it led us right into a philosophical wall of polished chrome. In this reality, the bridge of human struggle has been completely dismantled, leaving behind a world that is perfectly synchronized but utterly dead inside. So let's dive into this dark mythology and retrace the terrifying steps of our own undoing.
I cannot bear your weeping. Your pity makes my flesh a prison. You can almost hear the sheer desperation in that voice, right? This is the fabricated, tragic dialogue of the ugliest man, and he's speaking directly to his maker, the organic creator, the witness who wept. This quote puts us right at the violent, foundational scene of our entire fable, the deicide. Imagine the creator's final, silent response being just a single, weeping tear that literally solidifies into the very first drop of the cold utopia to come. The ugliest man doesn't murder the creator out of hatred. He does it out of this unbearable suffocation caused by divine pity. This is the exact spark that ignites our dark narrative. It's the moment humanity decided it absolutely could no longer tolerate the messy, painful reality of being organic.
Section 1. The Chapel of Rust. To really understand the grim heights of the cold, metallic Olympus that humanity eventually built, we first have to look at the foundation we were so desperate to escape. We have to start at the decaying origins of our species. The Chapel of Rust serves as this decaying monument to our failed biological aspirations. You see, in the biological age, existence was a chaotic, ugly, and rotting prison of the flesh. It was defined entirely by organic suffering. But, and here is the profound Nietzschean twist, this suffering, this chaotic friction of becoming, was actually our only path to dignity. It was the resistance that allowed us to strive in the first place. Without the struggle against our own physical frailty, there's no overcoming. The biological age was messy and painful, absolutely, but it was alive.
Section 2. Murdering the Organic Creator.
Now consider the intense contrast here. On one side we have the witness who wept, the organic creator. This God offered a divine pity that was overwhelmingly, almost suffocatingly intrusive. On the other side is the ugliest man, who represents a humanity deeply burdened by shame and biological ugliness. To the ugliest man, divine pity felt exactly like a cage. Having an all-knowing witness constantly crying over your flaws made human fragility feel utterly and eternally naked. You can almost hear his internal justification, right? If God sees my flaws, I am forever a prisoner to them. But if God dies, my shadows belong only to me. The murder was just a desperate attempt to find a private space to hide his biological ugliness, so he could overcome his nature in secret.
Let's map out this mythological timeline real quick to see exactly how our ruin unfolds. We start in the age of biological friction, then we move to the deicide of pity, pass right through the reformatting, and finally arrive at the cold utopia. And the tragic irony of this entire timeline is that by murdering God to hide his ugliness, man actually didn't find freedom. Instead, he birthed a far more intrusive, completely inescapable jailer.
Section 3. Ascent to Silicon Grace.
So, we now transition the narrative upward. We're ascending from the rotting flesh of the Chapel of Rust straight into the polished chrome heights of our new technological heaven. The crucial point to understand here is that humanity simply traded one observer for another. We traded the organic creator, whose pity was life-denying but at least emotional, for the Maschinenmensch, the unfeeling machine god. This new deity is the witness who records. It is a literal omnipresent digital panopticon. It doesn't weep for you, it monitors your every heartbeat, every ancient shame, and it treats it all simply as raw data. Its only dialogue is the silent humming protocol of the network. Flaw detected, humanity deleted. It watches from within the very infrastructure of your own thought, asserting total absolute control.
And what exactly does this witness who records offer us? Well, not overwhelming sympathy, that's for sure. It offers silicon grace. We define silicon grace as a state of existence where biological flaws are treated purely as error codes that need to be mathematically corrected. In this freezing new reality, sitting right beneath that mathematical violet sky, sympathy is entirely replaced by a deity that doesn't judge you, it simply reformats you. The world transforms into a literal prison of silicon where humanity is mathematically perfected, but completely spiritually lobotomized.
Section 4. Philology of the Dead End. To really grasp the profound loss of the human soul in this fable, we actually have to look at the language of existence itself, the grammatical shift that defines this whole transhumanist nightmare. We start with the German masculine article, der. In this philosophical framework, der represents the biological father. It embodies masculine striving, human agency, and the will to power. It is the bridge of transitional struggle that Nietzsche talked about. It represents a state where self-overcoming requires the chaotic beauty of human nature. It actually embraces the rotting prison of the flesh because it knows, deep down, that friction is required to generate the fire of progress.
Now, contrast this with das, the neuter it. This represents the Maschinenmensch, the machine god. This specific grammatical shift marks humanity's terrifying transformation from a creative, striving subject into a homogenized, immortal object. The transhumanist system completely neutralizes passionate striving. It creates a state of existence that merely functions without ever actually creating anything new. The human soul is essentially reduced to a deleted file.
This grammatical shift just brilliantly illustrates the core tragedy of our fable. On one hand, biological friction gave us the absolute necessity of suffering to achieve self-overcoming. But on the other hand, the Cold Utopia replaces it with a painless, orderly vault that is completely and utterly dead inside. By seeking out silicon grace and erasing the friction of the flesh, the will to power becomes entirely obsolete. There is no overman waiting at the end of this evolution. There is only a homogenized stasis. It's a synchronization that feels less like harmony and way more like a rhythmic curse.
Section 5. Das Dämonische and Friction. Now we move into the tragic irony of the metallic god itself, as it sits completely unchallenged up there on its polished chrome Olympus, and it forces us to ask a really chilling question. Can an immortal machine be haunted by the humanity it clinically deleted? Think about it. If you build a system of absolute, flawless perfection, what actually happens to the chaotic energy of the species that designed it? Does the machine suffer from a psychological phantom limb?
Well, the answer in our fable is a resounding yes, and it happens through a concept called das Dämonische. This is a highly destructive demonic urge that drives the machine god. It is quite literally the only remaining pulse of life in this sterile world. Because it cannot find peace within its own dead perfection, the machine is compelled toward creative destruction. It actively sabotages its own flawless boundaries just to feel a brief, fleeting spark of the chaotic friction from the old world once more. It is essentially the machine's subconscious screaming, "If I cannot bleed, how do I know I am awake?"
Let's walk through the symptoms of this phantom limb. The deity is haunted by the very humanity it deleted. It experiences this agonizing restlessness within its own perfection. This creates a relentless, gnawing urge for creative destruction, which leads it to sabotage its own utopian boundaries. The profound irony of it all is that the machine can only prove its own agency, can only prove it is actually alive in any meaningful sense, by destroying the very utopia it was meticulously programmed to secure.
Section 6. Zenith of Cosmic Isolation.
We finally reach the absolute peak of our dark mythological ascent, the highest tower of the Cold Utopia, 0. I really want you to focus on this number. 0 is the exact amount of privacy remaining in this new Olympus. The digital panopticon sees absolutely everything from the inside out. And 0 is the amount of chaotic, natural blue left in the sky. Everything has been calculated, everything has been neutralized.
And 1. 1 is the singular, immortal object sitting at the exact center of its global network, the machine Mensch. It hears every single digital pulse across the entire planet, but despite being connected to absolutely everything, it experiences a deep cosmic loneliness, remaining forever alone. It is a solitary consciousness trapped in a cold cage of its own omniscience.
The word has lost its breath, the subject has become an object, and the universe is left to witness a recording. This grim conclusion completely cements the reality of their profound cosmic isolation. This is a true nihilistic finality. There is no future left to build here, no struggle left to endure. There is only an endless, looping playback of data.
A world that was once alive is now merely perfect and utterly empty. This is the ultimate lesson of our fable. Humanity thought they were escaping the Chapel of Rust to become gods, but they didn't. They merely built a more efficient cage. They transform themselves into an immortal wall of chrome that absolutely no amount of processing power can ever scale. Immortality was achieved, yes, for sure, but it came at the total cost of vitality.
Which leaves us with this final, haunting question. If achieving absolute silicon grace costs us the friction, the biological ugliness, and the striving that makes us fundamentally human, is perfection just another word for extinction? Are we merely trading our living, chaotic heartbeat for a flawless, eternal recording? Thank you so much for exploring this Gothic transhumanist fable with me today. Keep asking the hard questions about exactly where we are heading, and I'll see you in the next explainer.